If you have a budget of 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, and you've not been able to establish new roads and create new roads and get the ministries working and reduce your overhead and manage it properly with 1 million or 1 trillion, how do you then begin to argue that if you have a right to go to international community and get more money for your state, then you'll be able to do more? When what you have
don't forget that
but let me put the question back, let me put it to Mr. Sango. In terms of this issue that is being raised by a large number of Nigerians saying that what we have not utilized effectively and efficiently, what's your own thoughts?
I think that is telling. I mean, I visited south part of the country a few weeks back in pursuance of our objective to get the Socialist Party of Nigeria registered. I was astounded at the level of degradation. I've traveled through many airports in my life. This is the first time I traveled through an airport done with polythene bags, all in the name of rehabilitating the international airport. And then when I was traveling to Aba from the place, I saw a big billboard on a federal government road, Rivers State, the nation's treasure base. The journey from Rivers, from Port Harcourt to Aba, according to many motorists, under normal circumstances, should not take more than 40 minutes. When going, we spend 2 hours. When coming, we spend 4 hours. Why? There is complete devastation of roads, mostly federal roads, including Aba and things like that. You know, we are dealing with elites that are completely impervious, to our needs and realities. And don't you forget, it's not accidental. That is the hallmark of capitalist system.
Okay.
Colonialism, when they colonized this country had always been stupendously rich in human and natural resources. For over 150 years, they created only one university, University of Ibadan, which itself was called University College, an appendage of University of London for 4 British West African countries. You would have thought that maybe Nigeria lacked the human and natural resources to sustain universities. Today we have over 100, and millions of our youth are still yearning for education. There is even a recent statistics that say that 40% of Nigerians of school age are not getting proper education. Okay. So there is a dysfunction between our reality, and our leaders are completely shameless. All this, the negotiation about South, what is it called? Derivation, is all just make believe.
Okay.
They are totally unreal. Yeah. In fact, if they are to subject themselves to scrutiny of ordinary masses, they will be thrown out in a GV or power.
Thank you, Mr. Sango. Now, we've since been joined by Mr. Tokunbo Odutola, who is a public affairs analyst. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for coming. We're looking at the national conference, and we're trying to recommend a few areas of focus. But let me start by asking you your thoughts about the constitution of this committee.
Firstly, I think I want Nigerians to be wary. What we have is an advisory committee for national dialogue. I do not think it is ordinary that the word national dialogue has been chosen by Mr. President. 1. 2, he has set up an advisory committee on national dialogue. That means the national dialogue itself, it's yet to be formed. It's yet to be construed. It's like you're telling somebody there's going to be rainfall tomorrow, and you remove all the water you have saved at home, you pour it away, you haven't even seen a drop of rainfall. There are lots of booby traps that we are in for, and we are all just falling and hailing the king.
Mr. Dusola.
Yes, ma'am.
We had members of that committee the advisory committee here last week. And we did ask them the question that for the past how many years, 10 odd, Nigerians have been clamoring for a conference, and government's reaction has been, we're deaf, we're dumb, we don't want to know. And suddenly the president comes out and says this. What were their thoughts? Since they were only an advisory body, were they confident that the president was going to listen to their advice? And each of them was absolutely certain that the president has shown enough commitment and would listen to their advice. But now you are saying we should all be wary.
We need to be.
Why do you say we should be wary when those on the committee feel that, yes, there's been enough signs from the body language of the president and the government that this is the time for us to talk about talking?
Let's look at the background. Confusion, crisis in the president's acclaimed biggest party in West Africa or in Africa. The NPDP, the PDP, no way. Now put it into the Yoruba thoughts that says, Kakaki ekuma jesese afi shawadadano. That means, well, if I would not get there, you would not get there. Now the president is was a lecturer. That means he's an intellect. He's gone onto his draft scheme, onto his drawing board with his very good lieutenants. If they say they will scatter PDP for me, if they say I cannot become president, okay, this is the game. Bring this national conference up quickly. Let's start discussing it. How many people have looked at the issues being raised by the G7 of late? All of us are looking at this so-called advisory committee. And Mr. President, very intelligent, did not say national conference, national dialogue. We are on the barber's chair. Somebody sitting on the barber's chair believes he's going around, but he's not going nowhere. He's in the same position.
Okay, let me put the question to Kenny then, because he's a member of the PDP and a commissioner in Delta State. Do you think this is a distraction by the federal government?
I wonder why we always try to be pessimistic. Well, I don't know why we don't try to be positive. Definitely it's not a distraction. Where is the distraction coming from? It amazes me when you say it's a distraction. Because in the first place, the president, if he wants to become the candidate of the ruling party, the way it is right now, because I'm a member of PDP, he will get the ticket. The truth about it is that we are modeling our democracy after America. Why I'm saying this is because of the angle he has come from. We're modeling our democracy after America. When Barack Obama said he was going for a second term, not even Hillary Clinton or anybody who ran against him in the first term contested any election. Let's call a spade a spade. We have criticized unnecessarily. Fashola did not have anybody run against him when he was going for a second term. He was adopted. I don't see why there is this hola bolo about the fact that it is 2015 and so for that reason we shouldn't talk because we are being distracted because we have crisis in our party. Yes, we have crisis in our party. There is no doubt about it. He is very correct. We have crisis because it is the largest party in Africa, like he rightly said. You cannot have that kind of party without crisis. It's not possible. You must be able to reason together and live together. So this distraction is where I find it's very funny. There is no distraction here. Worse still, as much as we don't want those governors to leave PDP, do you understand where it's coming from, the G7 governors? We don't want them to leave. We appeal to them to leave. But if they leave PDP, that would not change anything.
But we
that is the truth.
About
PDP so you shouldn't bring it as a distraction.
Okay,
it's not a distraction.
Let's look, before you go on talking about, let's look first at this issue of distraction. If you say it is not distraction, then what do you call it? When, like he just mentioned, like Chakumba just mentioned, this issue of national dialogue rather than national conference or sovereign national conference.
Okay, you see, when he says national dialogue, what we have is an advisory committee.
To come up with a strategy.
To come up with a strategy. Dialogue. That is what I'm trying to say.
Not a strategy for
dialogue,
conference
are the same thing as far as I'm concerned. Because we are taking it back to the House, to the National Assembly. If you have a national conference and you have a national dialogue, you will come up with a position paper. If you notice, Tony Ranta, who is a member of that group, has had a similar conference in Sheraton. If you remember, it was covered by channels. Yes. And he brought in all the, even he did that on his own. He brought in all the leaders from the different areas, notable leaders that you can know wish away, people like Olufala, people like Ike Clark and the others, for them to talk. That shows you that these things have been on the pipeline. So when you have a national dialogue, you're going to come up with a position paper. That position paper is what we are all interested in. Where do we go from here? How do we correct this imbalance of state police? How do we correct this imbalance of where the governors cannot give orders to their commissioners of police? How do we correct this imbalance when we say a governor is the chief security officer of his state, but actually he's not in charge of the security apparatus? How do we correct this imbalance of derivation? How do we correct this imbalance of the fact that in the federal constitution we have exclusive lists, areas where the state assemblies cannot even legislate on? These are all the things we're talking about.
It looks like there's so many issues in this matter. Number one, the president ought to be, mark my word, ought to be the custodian of the constitution and of the rule of law. The president has set up an advisory committee, national dialogue, or national conference, as you want us to believe is where he's going to. What are the functions of those elected into the National Assembly? The Constitution has, which is the ground norm of our nation, the sovereignty of this nation, indirectly lies with those in the National Assembly, because they are those elected, whether rightfully or wrongfully. They are there now in the National Assembly. They are the voice of the people. The president has no right under the Constitution. It is the legislative function of the National Assembly not even to change the Constitution, but to alter provisions of the Constitution. They have expended huge sum of money going from state to state, holding what this advisory committee is now holding or wants to hold. They've expended huge sum of money. Are you telling us indirectly that those we have at the National Assembly are not capable or are irresponsible? Those are some of the issues we need to tackle. Can this if we have this national conference, what is the effect on the Constitution? Now the president has said, okay, when they finish the dance party or champagne party I refer to, we will now go back to the National Assembly. We're going back to square one. At least tension would have eased. January is round the corner, 2014. By the time this National Advisory Committee, they have 1 month, so to say, by Mr. President, I think Nigerians have long been... We would not live in a world of pessimism. But what we have seen and what we see daily shows us, hey, this man is running in front of the train, and you say somebody standing in front of the train, he has the Superman strategy and say, hey, takum, stop, and the train will stop.